your tank.
Hello, it's Crouch Gaming here, and welcome to Battlefield 1. The game is out, and it's time for everybody to jump in. This is the first video I've done on it, and it likely will not be the last. I'm going to be covering my initial impressions of the game, and this is not a review, as I don't see myself as qualified to give one. I'm not a pro gamer, I'm not a journalist, and I'm definitely not an expert. I'm an enthusiast, and this is from that perspective. Now, the first thing I cannot possibly avoid talking about is the graphics. This game is the best looking first person shooter I have ever played, without exception, and possibly one of the best looking games in general that I've ever played as well. The first multiplayer game that I jumped into was on the St. Quentin Scar map, and I actually had to stop to look at puddles. Now, I'm not joking either. I stopped to look at puddles. The detail is insane, and it's likely thanks to the new photogrammetry techniques that they've been using to put this game together. I'm also not running a potato of a PC, but it's not that powerful either. I'm currently running with a GTX 970 graphics card, and with everything on Ultra, it's still clearing 60 frames per second, 100% of the time at 1080p. So the efficiency for the level of detail is absolutely incredible. And I was, going into it, a little bit concerned about how it was going to play, because I'm ultimately saving pennies for a new 10 series card. But at the moment, it's not going to be necessary. There were certain points of this game where I was running through a trench with the hood off, and it just looked like watching a film. They've also polished everything to the next level, like the gun. Dive in some mud, the gun gets covered in mud, and it's good looking mud as well. Good looking mud. Can't believe I just said mud's good looking, but it is. When it rains, your gun get raindrops on it. It just looks incredible. The sound design is also exceptional, but to be honest, I expected no less from DICE, because they've always been great with sound in these Battlefield games. Even things like the reload animations and the rechambering animations, they've all been polished to look fantastic, and they must have spent a great deal of time on these, just adding polish to the game that, to be honest, wouldn't be a detractor from a first person shooting experience, but it's an exceptionally nice touch. The maps overall do seem quite good in the game, but combining some of these maps with the new class balancing is a bit of a problem in certain regards, but I will get onto that later because I'm going to talk about gameplay later on. But some of the maps combined with some of the new balance changes do pose a few problems. One thing in the game that I'm not particularly fond on at the moment is the vehicles. I always play these games as infantry, so boots on the ground, gun in hand. Planes, tanks, normally they're just a bit of an annoyance to me, but in this game it's more so than ever before on any of the previous's. Vehicles do seem very strong, and they seem to take a team effort to bring them down. Dynamite, the obvious replacement for C4, does not stick, so if the tank moves off, you're going to fail the kill. The AT rocket gun, replacing the standard RPG, requires a deployed bipod, which kind of leaves you badly exposed and immobile. The limpet charge you can use, but you can only use one at a time, and it's not enough damage to sort of one-shot a tank. The best way I've seen people deal with tanks is when a tank gets too aggressive and they all rush the tank with the heavy AT grenade. But a really smart tank driver, a really experienced tank driver, isn't going to put himself in a position where that's going to be possible, and it's really hard to counter it. I think balance-wise would have been much better off if the AT rocket gun could have been fired from a standing position. That way you'd get better use of cover and stand more of a chance to avoid the tank's damage. But if they did something like that, it'd need consideration, because it then make that weapon usable on infantry all of the time. You can also make class sets. There are 3 programmable sets for each individual class that you have, so you could set up an anti-infantry assault and a complete anti-tank build as well, which is what I've done. So if I have a problem with a tank, I just switch to assault set 2, and then I've got everything I need to hopefully be able to deal with it. The only issue with that I've found is that often the game is resetting my choices back to the default, which is possibly a bug, or me being an idiot and not saving it properly or deleting it by accident. Now onto the gameplay and balance, and this is where it gets really interesting. I haven't really encountered too many bugs, and it seems really solid so far. There is a legacy bug with vaulting. I've always had problems with vaulting, being a complete derp sometimes. And you can end up vaulting entirely out of cover when all you wanted to do was just hop up a little step that was before that cover. You want to take a little peek and then you end up doing a full Superman dive out of cover into the people you were trying to look at, or off the top of a castle wall. The mini-map has been scaled back massively, but contrary to popular belief, it's still actually very useful as it shows the position of friendlies and shows their death location. Audio spotting is not in Battlefield 1, so if you hear gunfire, you need to use that mini-map to see if there's a friend there. Audio spotting is not in Battlefield 1, so if you hear gunfire, you need to use the mini-map to see if there's a friend in that area, to figure out if it's friendly fire or hostile fire. And then you need to use your ears to pinpoint it exactly. I like this a lot, and it adds a new level and a new type of skill for the thoughtful players. When you first transist from Battlefield 4 into Battlefield 1, you'll need to try and get used to this as quickly as possible, otherwise you might be in for a rough ride. Class balance is exceptionally interesting, and they've done a lot of work on it. Some good, some potentially bad. As mentioned earlier, it has problematic moments on certain maps. The recon bolt actions now have sweet spots where they will effectively do a one-shot body shot and kill your opponent. In concept it does sound fine because it forces you to make sure that you're fighting at the right ranges for the right weapons. And the sweet spots are not in close range, so the whole shotgun, sniper rifle playstyle, aka my old playstyle, is kind of over. Unless they've been damaged or you hit them in the head, you're not going to one-shot body shot a player in close quarters. I would say though that being on the end of one of these one-shot kills with an SMG from 75 meters is a little frustrating, especially when you know it's been a body shot. The bolt action's bullet speed is much higher than Battlefield 4, so sniping's a lot easier than it used to be. The lead you need on a moving target is reduced significantly, so in summary, you can one-shot body shot and it's easier to hit people with these scoped guns. The close range weaponry is also very much close range weaponry. If you get caught in a long range fight with a close range gun, you've got a serious problem. But it works in reverse too. If you push too hard with the bolt action and get in too close, you've got the same problem. You're unlikely to win. There's other elements that we need to start bringing in as well that I think might help. Clever use of gas grenades and smoke grenades work a treat to push a recon. They have to then put the gas mask on, otherwise they'll die. And with the gas mask on, they can't scope anymore. You can just literally run in there and hip fire them down. And the range you've got, the ability to throw those gas grenades, is really far. So there's other things you can do to deal with these problems instead of just running out into the open and getting one banged. Battlefield 1, as I mentioned earlier, is probably bringing a new skill set to the table, in my opinion. And from my short time playing the game, this new skill set is going to be based on picking the right stuff for the right engagement, and if necessary forcing people to fight in an engagement range that you're comfortable with. After that, it's always going to be important for map knowledge, as with any first person shooter. Then your aim's going to be important, and then your ability to find targets through audio without that minimap. At the moment, with both pros and cons considered, and with me needing to play a lot more of the game and learn a lot more about it, all I can summarise with is I'm having a hell of a lot of fun with this right now. If you're on the fence, my advice would be to wait and see what happens in the next few weeks. The definite negatives for me are the amounts of weapons in the game and the amount of options that you've got to play with are somewhat limited. Mostly the different options you have are the same gun with preset attachments on that you can't change. So I'm worried guns may get repetitive and affect the replayability. And some of the maps, I'm really not that fond of some of the maps, especially Sinai Desert, which I literally hate. Why they picked that for the open beta map, I'll never understand. I'm going to need to spend a lot more time in the game and see what I can learn, see what I can find out, and see what I can make work. But that's all for now, before I make this video go on for the best part of 2 days. If you've got any comments, any questions, or anything you want to know, by all means, send me a question, leave me a comment, and I'll do what I can to answer them. That's all for now. Have a good day.